Hi, Cohasset. I am Select Board Member Corey Evans, and this is just a quick video because if you're in the same situation as I am, you lost power Tuesday night, and it is now Friday, well, almost afternoon, and you still don't have power. I have two young children, so having no power has been a big challenge when it comes to just things like cooking, doing laundry, those sorts of things. So I wanted to just talk to you now because there are some things that are happening in town. And it's something. This has been a problem that when I was considering running for the select board was kind of high on my priority list. How do we improve the power grid here? Us losing power is not a new thing. Basically, if you've lived in town for any amount of time, you know that Cohasset loses power fairly often. I think from some metrics, we are the worst performing or among the worst performing areas in the state in the whole national grid system. I know if you've moved here from towns like Hingham, that has a very reliable power grid, you might have been surprised at how often you lose power. Could be a sunny day and you lose power, but if there's a snowstorm coming, you can pretty much guarantee you'll lose power. And that's a problem. Obviously, it's a problem. So I want to do two things right now, just if you give me a few minutes. One is just to tell you about why it is like this, and two, what we can do about it, or what we are actually doing about it. So the first thing is why we're here. A lot of this comes down to geography, but also kind of the power structure that we have here in town. Geography, obviously, we are on the coast. We love it. That's why we live here. However, that means we are the farthest away from power plants, from major power infrastructure. Our power either comes from Scituate, half the town gets their power from Scituate, or the other half of the town gets their power through a substation in Norwell, and the lines actually meander through Wampatuck State Park until they come up on King Street, and they supply basically the northern half of town. So obviously, we are at the very end of the power grid, where we are feeding off of other towns' power grids. That's not a good situation. We're a branch of a branch of a branch. So when a storm hits like it did, what you'll see on the map for power outages is that the communities that are closest to the large infrastructure get fixed first. Then, as time goes on, the power slowly comes back on as the grid, comes back onto the grid in stages until it finally reaches us. And we're at the very end. That's just geographically speaking how it is. But why then is Hingham so much more reliable, or even Hull? Well, both Hingham and Hull have municipal light companies, which means that just like we have a water department and a sewer department, they have a light department. And that means all the wires, all the poles, the whole power transmission infrastructure in their town is actually owned by the town. That's a very nice setup because it ensures that Hingham has locally all the resources it needs to get its grid back up online. If you lose power in Hingham, which doesn't happen very often because they do a very good job of maintaining trees and poles, they invest in their grid properly. But when it does go down, they have the resources locally to start fixing things. They also don't have a whole variety of other towns that they have to fix as well. So that's why a municipal power company is a little bit more ideal for a community like ours, because we would have a dedicated infrastructure or dedicated resource to really fix this infrastructure. National Grid, as I said earlier, has a lot of other towns. So the first thought is, and I've heard other people say this before, is let's just make a municipal light company here in Cohasset. Unfortunately, state law, the way it is, isn't very conducive to that. The issue is that basically, if we wanted to purchase the grid from National Grid, which we can do, we'd have to purchase it at basically replacement value. Replacement value means the same cost it would be to basically build a whole brand new grid. That would be tens of millions of dollars. It also we'd be buying something that isn't worth tens of millions of dollars. The grid in Cohasset is not very up to date. It's not a brand new grid. It's a fairly old grid, but we'd still have to be paying brand new prices. So that would leave us with both the purchasing expense, but also all the maintenance that hasn't been done, all the deferred maintenance coming up to this point. So we'd be spending tens of millions of dollars to buy it, and then tens of millions of dollars afterwards just to fix it. Never mind having to invest in the trucks and the people, and the price tag may just be too high. So short of a municipal light company, what can we do? Well, this is actually a really good moment in time to talk about that. Last week, the town of Cohasset expressed interest in something called a BRIC grant. A BRIC grant stands for Building Resiliencies in Our Communities, or in communities. And it's a whole grant program from the state and the federal government, which is supposed to help communities like ours build a resilient power infrastructure grid. I've been heavily involved with the Alternative Energy Committee, who's been driving this bus to get us down this road. I expressed support in the last couple of select board meetings to do everything we can to get this grant. I said in the meeting that there aren't a lot of things that we can do about how the power infrastructure works, but this is something we can do. A BRIC grant would allow us to build something called a municipal grid, or a muni grid, that would connect, at minimum, vital town facilities to a resilient infrastructure grid. It'd be basically a grid that could survive on its own. It could have batteries, solar. It could have some local generation through a clean energy technology like hydrogen. And it would ensure the schools, the fire and public safety buildings, senior center, those places would always have power, regardless of what happened outside. We'd have resiliency built in. That way our schools could stay open, or our residents would have places to go to stay warm, recharge their devices, or just be safe. And if we built that, it would give us a structure that we could then perhaps figure out how to extend it to the rest of the town. We wouldn't be spending money buying poles and wires, but we'd be applying for grant money through the federal and state governments to allow us to build an infrastructure, basically add-on. We could improve what we have by building our own small isolated grid. And what's interesting about that is the town could own that. The town could own these facilities that generate and store power. And then that actually could be a revenue generating service for us as well. We could use these resources to offset some of the cost that the town has when we need a lot of power. Or we could actually sell the power back to the power companies in times of high demand, middle of the summer, for instance. So not only would it cover its own cost, but it also give us a funding source to cover upgrades and maintenance in the future. I said in the select board meeting that I think this is really the way we need to go. Buying old wires and old poles doesn't really make sense to me. I'd love to have a municipal power company, but with the structure the way it is, it's just going to be a cost that we're not going to be able to absorb. It also means we have to hire all these resources that we also don't have any idea how to do. It's not something that we've done, and so we probably wouldn't be very good at it, at least for a very long time. However, with a BRIC grant, we can partner with National Grid. Instead of trying to replace them, we can partner with them. We can use their resources for maintenance of the poles, of the wires. And we can still get billed through National Grid. That means we can also take advantage of state programs when it comes to solar energy, those sorts of things. Those things aren't necessarily available to municipal light company customers, my apologies. But with the BRIC grant, we can build our own infrastructure, which then hooks into the National Grid infrastructure, which ensures at least our town facilities are protected, and then maybe we can, with this model, expand it to town as well. So I know this feels like it's way out there, and it is. And it is, as I said before, a little bit of a moonshoot. We're trying to do something that no one has ever done before. No one has ever tried to grab this money and these grant programs and use it the way we're using it. But I think we're the right people to try. We're not a large town. We're just, over 8,000 people. We're geographically pretty small, but we're also geographically the perfect case. We're at the very end of a line. We're connected by a company that has a lot of other customers and not necessarily the resources to keep us online. We have a history of losing power for extended periods, 4 days, for instance. So I'm hoping that this BRIC grant really comes through. And I'm hoping that the state and the federal government see that our community would benefit, would be a great pilot program for us to do this. We also have some of the most skilled people in the industry, with the Alternative Energy Committee just being staffed by very, very involved minds that are in this industry and can carry a workload that a lot of committees can't do. They have the expertise to guide us here. And that's unique. So I'm hoping that we get this grant funding and we can pull our heads together to at least make forward progress on this problem. Anyway, that's just a little bit of time. It's in my head. I wanted you guys to know about it. I hope some of you have power. I think half the town has gotten power. For those that haven't, please hang in there and stay warm. The Wilcott Commons is open during the day to get warm, to get heat, to recharge your devices. There's also Wi-Fi. I do know that's most of 3A is back online, so as well as the town common. So if you need a coffee or something like that, thank God those are back as well. But largely, just please be safe out there. There's trees down, there's power lines down. It's still not. It still requires a little bit of attention when you're driving around because things aren't back to normal yet. Thanks for listening to me. As always, take care. If you have any questions, email me, cevans@cohassetma.org, or you can follow me on Twitter, Corey for Cohasset. I'm also on Facebook as Corey for Cohasset. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.